Hi, my name is Winslaya, and welcome to my video going over the 36th Dev Diary for Age of Wonders 4. This is covering the new Intrigue happenings, which is a event chain which you get access to if you get the new Ways of War content pack, which is coming out on November 5th. I did just have a quick read through this, and while there are a few sections that they labeled as spoilers, I really wouldn't consider them very big spoilers. They just basically tell you what could happen if you get an intrigue event in single player events. But I won't get into them just yet. I'd like to go over this like in the order that they present the information, and their spoilers are towards the end. I'll give you another little spoiler warning if you want to experience those events for yourself when we get to that content. But before we really dived into this, I wanted to mention that I took some screenshots from the dev stream that they just did. Michelle and a Voxel just did one. I only watched about 30 minutes of it, so I didn't actually get to see the part where they talked about the new Ranger class tree, and I want to make sure that before I dive into this content, I have all the screenshots that I could get. So I'll try and cover this more on Tuesday next week, and I'll be watching the rest of that content today. But yeah, let's get back to the dev diary. That's what this video is all about. The design here was, I think, supposed to be something like the story realms, if I remember correctly. I think they said somewhere around here that they wanted something like the story realms to happen in the other maps, but they also were thinking that it wouldn't quite work in multiplayer for a lot of different reasons. Let's see. Yeah, this is just talking about how things are split up generally. Part one, the Cosmic Happenings came out in the Eldritch Realms DLC, and what else can we say here? They are designed to target a AI player, so yeah, not a human player, in a non-story realm. They aim to shake up the mid game with diplomatic statuses just changing on the fly, because if one of the rulers gets either, I think, replaced or there's a rebellion, I think is one of the options, then that might change how they interact with everyone else around them in the rest of the map. And yeah, I like that. It's kind of like the mid-game crisis in Stellaris with the Khan. That was always very interesting for me. I feel like what we've seen with the Cosmic Happenings is pretty similar to that mid-game crisis in Stellaris, and how it shakes things up and just kind of like gives everybody a curveball that they have to deal with, because this, if you ignore it, the force can kind of balloon out of proportion. But if you do address it, then you generally out tech it, at least in Stellaris. And I feel like Cosmic Happenings work in a similar way, with the way they just are in play for a certain number of turns, but they can dramatically shift how people, um, what they can fight and how they can fight each other. All right, so yeah, this is where they talk about it being like the story realms, but they wanted more quest chains like that in the game, and I think I started to see that in Primal Fury with the quest for the avatar. The spirit animal can give you a few quests, and that's really neat because it gives you something cool when you complete that at the end of that event chain. And I don't know what exactly you get at the end of these, but it does seem like there's some pretty interesting stuff in the spoiler section of this dev diary. What's really interesting here is they tell us that there's 6 types of happenings, and that will lead to 90 unique events. And I don't know if I quite get that um, that wording, because it's not 3 times 6. That would be 18. There's ending A, B, and C, as well as I think you can probably take other decisions at other points that would lead to more than that. Because what's 90 divided by 6? Oh gosh, I want to do some math early in the morning off the top of my head. That's 15, right? So that must mean there's 15 unique outcomes to each of these happenings, at least from what I'm reading here. There may be, oh wait, no, this is saying unique events. That might be adding it to the cosmic happenings. Not too sure how they did that math there, but that's a lot of different events, and I do like the existing event chains. I think this is going to be pretty fun for people who can experience it. I am a little sad that it doesn't happen in multiplayer, which I think is something that they address around here. But it does make a lot of sense because, yeah, like they said, what if the person who has the intrigue event decides to engage with the stuff and defeat it themselves, then the people who are investigating it, they can't finish it. What else did they say in this part? Like conditions and constraints. Oh, right, yeah. So different things will have different requirements. Right here, it's saying basically if you have if an AI ruler has 5 chaos affinity and no other affinity surpasses it, then you might get the Dawn of Calamity Intrigue event happening, or at least I think that one is more likely to occur than the other ones. I think that there's a general one, and then there's ones that have like these affinity associations with it, which will probably be a little bit more challenging, but who knows? I'm not too sure at this point. So yeah, this is where they talk about multiplayer. Multiplayer brings its own challenges. Like, what if somebody tries to fight or invalidate your quest objective? What if, XYZ? What if the player is eliminated? Like, it can all go sideways pretty quickly in multiplayer when it comes to how these things can interact with other players on the map. So I get that. I understand why it's working that way. I was nervous that Intrigue would allow you to assassinate other people's heroes and rulers, and that could be kind of like a bit tricky in multiplayer if people decide to just focus somebody for no good reason, but just because they think it's funny. That could be kind of annoying. So in a way, I'm happy that intrigue events aren't in multiplayer, but they weren't really what I was anticipating them to be in the first place. um, but that's kind of beside the point. It's just interesting that they made that decision with content that you pay for that's not going to appear in your multiplayer experience. But I know most people experience the game in single player, so take that with a grain of salt. Now, to make this happen a little bit more frequently, if you like the idea of intrigue happenings, you can go for this new trait, Unfolding Mysteries. They mentioned how they've created a pre-existing realm called Dragon River Forest, which sounds awesome, sounds really interesting, great name. Um, or you can just create your own realm with the Unfolding Mysteries. If you look here, Unfolding Mysteries is the one at the very top, and this just makes it so intrigue happenings are more likely to happen. And if you have a diverse set of rulers, then you're more likely to see more intrigue events. I think there was something in here at one point where they mentioned that um, you can have multiple intrigue events in a match, but if you have the chaos one, then you won't get the chaos one again. It should be about one happening per realm, I think is what they said, and it may even carry over that the fact that you had the chaos event recently to your next game, so that you don't get the chaos event the next game and then the next game, and you don't get to see any of the other fives just by chance, because that in theory can happen, and you want a little bit of variety when you're playing these types of games. So after that, what do we have? Something about how the the settings that affect happening intensity, the cosmic happenings, can either happen more frequently or less frequently, and you can say it. If you set it to more frequently, I think you get to see the ones that generally affect the game more. Um, and the ones that have less of an impact, they don't come up as often. So I think by increasing this setting, you should be able to see maybe some of the more challenging intrigue events, and they should happen a little bit more frequently. Maybe with this setting boosted up, you'll see more than one per per realm or per map that you fight in. All right, now we're entering spoiler section, which I don't consider these massive spoilers. They basically show off that you can get these different events that they mentioned earlier. They told us there were 6, but there's 4 of one type, and then 1 of this type, and 1 of this type. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. They basically described the chaos one in more detail. The chaos one that they mentioned earlier, Dawn of something rather. And when this triggers, you'll get this pop-up, I believe. And it's saying basically this ruler Ignoth, something like that. This Baylor is going to summon several armies near the cities and outposts, and they will get something called Oda Bothan's Royalty. I'm not entirely sure what that trait does, but it probably will make them a little bit more challenging as a ruler to defeat. And let's see, what else can we say here? I think that's pretty much it, right? This new ruler has basically replaced the old one, and in a few turns, you'll be requested to investigate it. If you leave it alone, then they will get stronger and declare war on other people. I think is what it says a little bit below. Right here, this is the investigation option that you can go and you can use to try and either remove this guy from the map or side with him. I think if you want to, when you get to the end of the event chain, you can side with him. So they represent these guys. They succumbed, and his minions are tormenting the realm. So you just gotta go to this location to basically start that event chain. And then after that, whenever you whenever you quest related to the intrigue, you can decide to opt out of the intrigue. The deeper you go, the more tempting this may become. The less affected rulers become aware of your investigations. So if you stay on the path, they may become angry at you and try to attack you is kind of what I'm seeing here. If you decline the quest, then they'll like you a little bit more, and that means they're probably less likely to declare war on you, because I think most of these guys are going to be pretty aggressive. But maybe you can even get them to ally you if you do things that are in their nature, if your diplomatic goals are aligned. Yeah, you can investigate and destroy a ritual circle, which sounds just like a challenging fight. I believe they said that it should take you through 3 or 4 quests before you get to the end. I always forget where I read this type of stuff when it's as much text, but I do remember them saying that you should have to do that like at least 3 or 4 fights before this guy is removed from the map. Every few turns, a random event may spawn. For example, on other rulers, the longer the situation goes on, the more they'll be affected. Right, I think I mentioned that earlier. And this seems to be them deciding that they want to declare war on one of the other rulers on the map. So if you leave them alone long enough, they'll expand and get stronger. If you decide to investigate, you can get yeah, the 2 to 4 quests that I mentioned. So it might only take you 2 quests to actually remove this guy. And like I mentioned, you can either work with him or get rid of him. I see 3 options here. So this is destroy the contract, banishing this guy, and bring back the other guy. That guy was probably be loyal to you. You also get 60 Imperium. That seems not like a lot of Imperium, but I'm sure these options are the main selling point in completing the event chain. Use your knowledge of this contract to join the alliance and just to keep them on the map. That could be an interesting way to win, but once again, like I mentioned earlier, this wouldn't be something for multiplayer. This would just be for single player. So I might, uh, I might consider that not really a win. Like that's kind of like submitting to the con, and in that situation, I think a lot of people would consider you the vassal or like the weaker um, guy in that interaction. That might be different enough here that you could consider it a full victory. And then the last one says keep the contract, use it to claim infernal power for yourself, which seems to be knowledge and mana. I'm curious how much that is. I'm really, really curious how much that is, because it would need to be a lot to keep. I assume this would be a relatively strong ruler relative to everybody else. It need to be a lot to keep this guy on the map, from what I can tell. And now we have the type of happenings that I mentioned earlier. There's 4 possessions. If we go in here, there's this like chaos possession. There's looks to be some kind of, is that nature or order? I think it might be order because of the color associated. And this is a new graceful mount, isn't it? Yeah, it says order right here. So this is like the order one. This looks like the shadow one. You can um, deal with an empowered reaper. And then what do we have here? Calamity Dragon, the Chaos guy. Yeah, this must be the one that a voxel mentioned. You can have a Calamity Dragon that spawns in accursed units, some of the scarier new units on the map. So that's probably the most challenging one. But then again, I guess this could spawn in celestial units and be pretty challenging for its own reasons. And then I think the two in the middle are the less interesting. One is a rebellion, and one is a usurper, I want to say. So this is the rebellion that I believe we started to see in the dev stream. Um, you know, pretty self-explanatory. You rescue a hero, they take over the ruler, or they take over the empire. You probably have to defeat the other guy while having an alliance with them in the rebellion phase, but we didn't get there, I believe, or at least I didn't get to that point in the stream if they did do that. And then this one is basically a hero takes over the mantle, and I think you can either choose to um, go back to the previous ruler. You can like free the previous ruler, or you can side with the new one. That's what I'm assuming this is saying based off of what we know about the other events and what they said above. And then what's this? This is just a picture of this Reaper. It looks like as a ruler. That's pretty funny actually. I like that a lot. Cool. Well, yeah. Thanks for joining me here. I'll see you around. Have a good one.